Hey there, guys. Dragon Master here, and I want to welcome you to Star Wars and Earth, Episode 18, codenamed Terrans vs. the Empire. So, I really have nothing to say, so without further ado, let's get straight into the video. The Terrans have been fighting the Empire for the past 3 years, so let's get more into that. So, for the past year, since the destruction of the Death Star, the Terrans and the Empire have been fighting gruesomely across the galaxy, basically. The Terrans, for at least a year, had been attacking Imperial planets across the borders from their own territory. And they were doing major strikes and taking any supplies from the Imperials that they had stationed there from their bases, and then taking it back to their own territory. It took the Empire some time to recover, at least a year, before they started launching their own counterattacks in their own territory, basically invading the outer colonies of the Terran Alliance. This meant that Rex and Garrus had to stop attacking any planets across the border and had to focus on protecting their planets and their own territory. So the Empire would basically first try to conquer the planet, but if they could not conquer the planet, they would basically bombard it from orbit and destroy the planet entirely. And basically, that happened on every world they invaded. You see, the Terrans knew that eventually they would fight the Empire, so they came up with a plan basically to use the outer colonies, as they weren't that populated, weren't really important to them, to basically get the Empire's best to come there and then use brutal tactics of their own, basically destroying the environment of the world but killing many of the Imperials. At first, the Empire was surprised at what the Terrans were doing to their own world, but they were also impressed. A few of the higher-ups in the Empire were impressed at how brutal they could be. But the Imperials eventually realized this and used their own tactic, which was they couldn't conquer, destroy, and the Terrans were forced to flee those worlds. This had been going on for the past 2 years, and the Empire has finally made it to the mid-2 colonies. And Garrus and Rex have at least lost half of their fleets in these past 2 years, and they continue to lose many forces along with the territories that they were guarding. On other news, with the Rebels, Thrawn, and the others, the Rebels set up their base on Hoth, known as Echo Base, and have been helping the Terrans fight the Empire in the Mid-Rim, along with the Outer Rim. The Terrans use the not well-trained soldiers in the Outer Rim, and basically to their advantage by fighting them, and since they weren't that experienced, it caused huge losses for the Imperials in the Outer Rim. In the Mid-Rim, it was pure chaos, with revolts going on amongst their own ranks, a lot with people who, basically Imperials, who weren't happy at what the Empire had planned for the Death Star, also with Alderaanians who survived, basically, who weren't on Alderaan when it was destroyed. And the Rebels used this to gain more recruits, basically to get their numbers up, as the Terrans usually took most people that were fleeing the Empire, meaning they wouldn't go to the Rebels, which did hurt them in a way. But so Thrawn, with the Third Fleet, has been basically fighting with the Rebels. He's been fighting in the Mid-Rim and has been doing great victories. His latest planet he's taken over from the Empire is Naboo, which had a few revolts over the past 3 years, ever since a few files basically concerning Palpatine, basically him trying to kill Padme a few times. As Dooku, and the Trade Federation have fought about killing Padme for a while back during the Clone Wars, as she was becoming a threat to his, basically, power base. But with Anakin around, he decided not to give it much mind. A few spies had leaked this, and there was uproar saying that Palpatine was probably the main reason that she was dead. So Thrawn had liberated it. His fleet had he'd only lost a quarter of his fleet in the past 3 years, as he was a very strategical person, meaning that he'd gotten many victories and glory, as unlike other Imperial admirals, he found perfect formations or attacked the weak points that the Imperials didn't pay mind to in their own defenses. He also used their TIE fighters to their disadvantage by using the cannons to focus on them, obliterating them, since with one shot they were destroyed. Meaning the fighters could focus on the Star Destroyers, causing the Star Destroyers' cannons to fire at them and not at their own ships. And with this, Thrawn would use the main weapon to do mass damage at the Star Destroyer. And this would be very effective. Thrawn with Shepard and his crew, basically Shepard had become quite a fierce commander and captain of his ship, along with his sister who helped with medical supplies now. He had become very deadly, and Shepard had demolished many Imperials and killed off many of their ranks, earning him the nickname the Bloody Butcher by the Imperials for how bloody he was when he raided a base, as Shepard was angry at the Empire for all the brutal things they had done to aliens across the galaxy, and humans that basically sided with the aliens, with Base Delta Zero as one of the main rages he's had, as he has also heard that they might have pushed a few of those species on the verge of extinction because of this. So he thought it was justice, and the Imperials, well, stormtroopers and low-ranking people on the Navy feared him. So yeah, with the economies of the Empire and the Terran Alliance economy hasn't really been doing so well, along with the Empire, as they don't really make much money, as they can't really do any trading, as it's war times. Along with the Empire, which is in pure chaos across the Outer and Mid-Rim, meaning supplies that go the places are lacking along to the core worlds, and this enrages Palpatine, who decides to focus on giving the more humanoid species the supplies, or those who are human, while the alien species starve on Coruscant and other core worlds. They decide to move to the Terran Alliance territory, but with the whole Imperial basically invasion going on, they can't really leave, as Palpatine had made it illegal that if you tried to leave to any of their, basically anywhere that was aligned with them or a territory of theirs, that you would be executed. So many people try to sneak in, basically, out of Coruscant and head to the territory. Some would succeed while others were killed or were taken prisoner. It was pure chaos, and Palpatine realized that he needed to put an end to this. So he decided to contact Vader and have him search for the rebels, as the rebels for the past 3 years have been trying to help the Terrans at best. They've been helping in the Outer Rim, with many of them being effective. With the Terrans focusing on the Mid-Rim, it's much easier for them, and with Tarkin dead, the Outer Rim was in basically pure chaos. So they were able to get many recruits and grow their forces up, but they had lost a good amount of their own soldiers and fighters. Overall, they had lost half of their entire forces in the Rebel Alliance, and this wasn't good for them, but they hoped to get their numbers back up soon. So Vader would dispatch probes to search all across the galaxy for the Rebel Alliance's base, as if he took that out, their basically push and fight in the Outer Rim would come to a halt, allowing the Empire to recover. Thrawn would hear about this and warn the rebels that if they see any probes, to immediately destroy them and make sure they weren't tracked, as his spies had told him. But on other news, back on Earth, about 3 years before the war began, a week before the Death Star destroyed Alderaan, basically a huge ship, which many people did not recognize, was about to launch. This ship basically had a small crew, along with at least 50 soldiers. This crew and these soldiers were being sent off to discover a certain location of a planet that the Terrans had discovered. For the past, basically ever since they were discovered, the Terrans wanted to basically discover what was left of Earth and its mysteries. What they did discover did surprise them. They had discovered ships across Earth, basically hidden beneath massive, deep trenches in the oceans, or very deep within a desert. These ships matched from all across the galaxy, but the most notable ones were that those belonged to the Sith. The Terrans theorized, and many had come to facts, that the Sith most likely had crashed here during the time Corbin was basically attacked by the Old Republic. Basically, I don't know how long ago it was, but it was the time of Tulak Horde, I think, or I don't know, but they were fleeing, as you know, and that later on they would flee the Droming Kaas and build a new empire, but that's a story for another time. Some of these ships had arrived here, basically crashed as they were fleeing from Korriban, and with this, they basically landed on Earth and met the population of Earth. Seeing as they were humans, for the humans that were on the ship were happy, well, the Sith purebloods really didn't care that much. But by using their skills, along with their Force abilities, they made them seem themselves like gods. So the Terrans realized that it was them who were basically the gods of most of the Pantheons back then, like the Greeks, Rome, Norse, Egyptian, I'm pretty sure Asian. I think there are a few more, but I don't know them. Those are the only ones I know. They realized that many of these Sith ships that crashed made them seem, when they got out, made them use their powers to make them look like gods, and the Terrans worshipped them, building them temples, and praying to them back then. Luckily, none of the religions had anything with the Sith. That was something else. The Sith had never claimed to be that. Well, all the religions of Earth weren't from any outside, people from the planets that crashed here. But on other news. So after they died, the Terrans back then thought their gods had left, but they didn't know that the Sith had died, as the Sith eventually either killed themselves all off or died. And the many creatures and beasts that they had on those ships, roamed free as well, which created many of the mythical creatures we have, and eventually died or were all killed out. This also counts for other alien species that were slaves on there, basically, and they were made to look like certain creatures from basically certain species in Norse mythology, like the Jotun. But one of the main mysteries that the Terrans had discovered was a ginormous ship, basically deep within a trench in the oceans. They pulled it out, and it was very damaged. It took them a few years to repair, basically during the Empire's time, as the ships that explained all of the Pantheons was found during the Clone Wars. This ship took them years, and finally they had repaired it a year before the Death Star destroyed Alderaan and discovered the location of a planet. And they realized that whatever this planet led to, it might be explain the origins of humans on this planet, which has been the biggest question on Earth since the discovery of those other ships. It made them think maybe they weren't from this planet either. Or maybe some of them had, well, another species had integrated itself within their planet and eventually evolved. So it was a big question, and this ship would help them as it showed coordinates. This ship would basically take them on a 3-year journey from what the reports say, as it would take them through wild space, and then also across the unknown regions. But the team was ready for anything, and after spending a year of preparing, they were ready. The ship immediately launched, and they flew off to the basically wild space to begin the journey. And it would be 3 years until they finally arrived back in the unknown regions. And when they returned to Earth, they would have some news which would shake the whole planet. And that is where we are going to leave this episode off. So I only have one thing to say, and that is I'm so happy how the channel's been growing. And I hope the channel continues to grow. So that's all I have to say. So thank you all very much. Please comment down below and subscribe to the channel, and thank you.